Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name's Leelle Slifer, and I want to tell you about my cousin Carmel. But to know Carmel, first you have to know our family. Carmel's grandparents were Naim and Tova. Their names couldn't have been more fitting for their personalities. In Hebrew, Naim means pleasant. Tova means good. Naim, my grandfather's brother, was born in Israel long before it was a country. He grew up in the tiny village of KEYE. He spoke Arabic before he knew a word of Hebrew. Naim was the son of a Cohen, our family descending from the high priests who didn't leave Israel for 2,000 years after the destruction of the Second Holy Temple. Naim's cousin, Margalit Zinati, is the only Jew left in KEYE, and she manages our family synagogue there and the olive orchards we have. Naim and Tova had 4 children, all named after gentle bodies of water in Israel: Kinneret, Eilat, Yarden, and Snir. And as those names suggest, Naim and Tova passed down their gentle, quiet, but undying love for the land of Israel to their children. Kinneret's daughter Carmel was only 6 months older than me. Although I grew up in Texas, my mother, like Naim, like Tova, and even like Kinneret, was a teacher, and so we spent our entire summer every year in Israel. Whenever Carmel went to visit her grandparents up north, their kibbutz, we would go to. I loved to play with her. We would sit on Naim and Tova's patio, and I remember picking grapes off the vine that grew on their pergola, and we would wince. They were so sour, but we convinced ourselves they were delicious. We used to help Tova make labane in her little kitchen in the kibbutz, and we would eat artikim, popsicles, and bask in the golden sun without a fear in the world, the way you can only do in your youth. You could not imagine a more kind and peaceful family. But our peace was shattered on October 7th. Carmel had just returned from her travels in India to spend Sukkot with her parents at her childhood home in Kibbutz Be'eri. They ate Shabbat dinner together and went to bed under the same roof, including one of her brothers, Alon, his wife Yarden, and their 3-year-old daughter Geffen. They woke up to a horror we cannot even comprehend. Alon, Yarden, and Geffen were kidnapped by terrorists. They were forced into a car and driven towards Gaza. Baruch Hashem, along the way, Alon was able to escape with Geffen, and they made it back to Kibbutz Be'eri after hiding in a ditch for 12 hours. Yarden was taken hostage, but she was released in a hostage deal in November, along with over 100 other hostages. Carmel wasn't as lucky. And as they led Carmel out of Be'eri, she saw that her mother, Kinneret, had been murdered in the street, executed. She wasn't even wearing shoes. The next year was a fight to bring Carmel home. But while we fought for her, true to her selfless spirit, Carmel fought for others. Some teenagers who'd been held hostage with Carmel were released in November, and they told us that while in captivity, Carmel practiced yoga with them, one of her favorite pastimes, and she taught them how to do guided meditations to help keep them sane. They called Carmel their guardian angel. I was 9 months pregnant with my third child when October 7th happened. My husband and I, we didn't know if the baby was going to be a boy or a girl. And for months, we'd had a name picked out if it was a boy, first and middle. We knew what it would be. And although we had a first name picked out for a girl, we could not settle on a middle name. Nothing felt right, and I didn't know why. When I went into labor and delivered our beautiful daughter exactly 1 month later, I finally realized why that was. She was born on November 7th, Kinneret's birthday. And not only that, but that date, 11/7, that's 18, KEYE, life. I was so certain that someday I would get to introduce Noah Leelle Slifer to Carmel. That I would get to tell Carmel that her mother was sending us a sign from heaven to have hope. Hope that Carmel would return, and hope that life and goodness would prevail. And then this past weekend, I learned that Carmel had been executed. She'd survived hell for almost a year, only to be murdered in a tunnel under Rafah mere hours before the IDF arrived. The entire world warned Israel to stay out of Rafah. All eyes on Rafah, they said. But could no one see the hostages in Rafah? Could no one see our Carmeli? Carmel should have come home. Hamas was supposed to release her in November. She was slated to be released the morning the temporary ceasefire collapsed. And then if the deal being negotiated this summer had taken effect, Carmel would have been in the first group freed. Instead, Hamas murdered her when it seemed like she might be rescued. I'm an American, and like most of you, I live in a country where we take safety and security for granted. But could you imagine how we would react if terrorists invaded the U.S., gunned down the elderly in their nightgowns in the street, mutilated parents in front of their children, and burned babies in their cribs? Hamas took over 200 people hostage on October 7th. By population size, that would be equivalent to almost 7,000 Americans. And they've been there for almost a year. We cannot stand by and let this horror continue. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. This is not about politics. This is about right and wrong, and good and evil. And we have to call out to all of our leaders to stand side by side with Israel to help bring the hostages home now. Yesterday, Carmel was buried next to her mother, Kinneret. In Judaism, when a person passes, we say, may their memory be a blessing. We are a religion that focuses on life, even in death. But Carmel and the other 5 hostages murdered this weekend should be more than a memory. Their names: Carmel, Eden, Hirsch, Ori, Alexander, Almog, should be etched deep into the very fabric of your souls. shout their stories to the world, and demand that Hamas release them. We all failed Carmel. But like the guardian angel she always was, she wouldn't want us to fail the others. Tishmeri aleinu. Keep watching over us, Carmeli. Am Yisrael Chai.